Welcome everyone to another episode of Price Targets with your host Bitcoin Jack. Welcome back. It's Wednesday. I'm gonna be pretty swift in my opinion on Bitcoin this week. We remain rejected by the 60k level, and price hasn't been able to break out by April 6th, which was a pivot. Instead, we did pivot down on April 6th, which was yesterday. That doesn't necessarily say, we're going to go a lot lower, but it just makes me of the conviction that price is just going to move around a little bit longer. ETH has an interesting situation, and I want to talk about Litecoin too. And first of all, I want to have your attention for ECOS. They're sponsoring this content. They're a regulatory compliant exchange. They have fiat, on-ramps, off-ramps, spot, and futures. So pretty much has everything that you need as a trader, and they're expanding their features. They launched a token, which gives you quite some benefits on the platform, and they're slowly growing, so I'm really happy to see what's going on at ECOS. And if you like this content, please support it by checking out the link in the description below / in the watermark. Thank you for sponsoring ECOS, and let's dive into Bitcoin. The first thing probably worth noting, and I may or may not have showed that in previous videos. I've certainly showed it on Twitter, and that's specific level that Bitcoin is trading at right now. There's been quite a bit of a volume peak around the 59 level. So 59 level is really the level to breach, and we've been above it, but every time we got to the level, we kind of, got rejected. So there's, a couple attempts here. If we zoom in on lower time frames, we can see that, there's multiple attempts, and the likelihood of it holding again once we return to 59 is pretty low. That doesn't say that when that's going to happen. By now, it's just an incredibly exhausted resistance. So we're going to dive into the regular chart that, I've been using since forever in a little bit. But let's just have a look at this clean chart where you have a full touch here. You could argue that it's 2 touches. I'd probably not say that, simply because, this high didn't really sell off significantly. This high did. So this is kind of like 1 touch combined. And then we reach back into it, another high. This high actually did sweep the lows, so I'd say that this is another attempt. So that makes 1, 2, and 3, right? And for some, you may argue that that's also 1. So maybe that's 1, that's 2, this is 3, and then if we get back up here, it's 4. The other interpretation is this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and then this is 4. One way or the other way. Generally, I don't think that resistances have a lot of strength left once they get tested 4 times. You could get up here 4th time, and then a lot of people would argue, well, you probably get a little bit of a rejection and then get back up to it and then call that the 5th time. In my opinion, that's just a full test of that resistance. Okay. This here is pretty much our point of control if we kind of ignore this portion of price action. And it kind of means that this is the level where the most volume has been traded. And generally, what price will try to do a lot of times is come for these little holes in the volume profile, and they'll act as support and resistance. And then the other times, once it kind of gets past these higher peaks, it will come back, retest it, and it should become a solid support. If not, it just means that it's likely to go fill in those gaps again, right? And retest those gaps. So essentially, this tells us that there's a gap in the 53K region, 52 to 53. We kind of already did go through it. We already tested it, had a pretty clean reaction into the range high. It doesn't necessarily mean that we cannot test it. So basically, this is the range low, and this here is the range high. Okay, and what we can then do is grab the range low, probably take one of these two wicks as the low, and then use the high right here. If this range is a continuation range, so we have a high deviation here, back down, back into the previous range. We tested the structure over here, filled some of this gap here in the volume profile. Then anywhere below the 0.5 in this range is a discount, and a relatively nice bet to get exposure to the upside. Up here, you're paying a premium. Down here, you're getting a discount if you assume that this entire range eventually goes up here. And to manage your risk, it's probably always best to buy as price gets into the discount zone instead of being in the premium zone. So you sell the premium zone and you buy the discount zone, right? So what I've been doing, and maybe that's a good thing, that maybe that's a wrong thing, but I've started scaling in as we hit the middle of the range and the confluence zone of this red line here, which is the level where the most volume has been traded, right? Ideally, what I want to see happen right here, right now, is maybe, you know, come down here, sweep these lows, but I want to see this go back here and then break out, which then kind of is an inverse head and shoulders, or maybe you want to call it an Adam and Eve. And then there's the point of timing, right? I was kind of under the assumption that I wanted to see trend confirmation before the 6th, and otherwise we probably continue in a corrective structure, ranging for at least like a week or maybe 2 weeks. Maybe, and that's 7 days from now, the Coinbase listing on the NASDAQ is going to change things. So maybe there's going to be a full week of just ranging here. So, you know, April 14th, that's the listing. That's right around here. And funnily enough, you know, if we divide this into 50%, it kind of does match down and up. So what I ideally see is that today closes above the point of control or at it. And then the other thing, ideally, would be to see Bitcoin close inside this low here, and maybe even better, but maybe that just happens a little bit later on. But essentially this is pretty much the support that we breached now. If this is a reaccumulation pattern, this could be the spring, and springs generally are high volume structures. We can see a lot of volume being traded here. If I jump to the 8-hour, we can see it's the highest 8-hour volume candle on Coinbase since since the end of March, pretty much. So what I want to see is this jump back above here, which kind of confirms the spring, and then probably slowly travel back up to the range high. At that point, I don't give that range high a lot of chances to get rejected once again. So 0.5 here, 0.618 here, we hit it straight on point, and then there's a support of the point of control right there. So ideally, that's the scenario for the bulls. Scenario for the bears in the short term is that this continues dipping all the way down here, and then maybe decides to pivot up after the Coinbase listing to the NASDAQ. When I look at this structure, it would make more sense to slowly start pivoting up from here instead of bleeding all the way down here. And actually, this would make me cautiously bearish, even though I know there's support right here and this is a pretty nice range. If we close below here, that's where I'll probably start hedging a little bit more and scale out of what I'm scaling in right now. And it's probably, in my opinion, but that things can go wrong all the time. But my assumption is that we're probably going to have support here, here, or even here. So just going to start slowly, and then if we must get back up here, I think it's going to break out, and things probably look bright. So I'd say a couple of days to see confirmation of upside, and in my opinion, confirmation happens once price trades above this little block right here before this breakdown, because that kind of caused the sell-off. If we can get above there and just not within the range, that's probably a good reason to assume that this has legs up into the range high. Okay, so if we go back to our old previous regular chart, we can see similar levels drawn out here. The 3-day close support of the rally up here. Ideally, I kind of see that hold, and it has confluence with this block right here, which broke, which led to the breakout of this pattern down here, which I believe to be a descending broadening wedge. So losing all of this would, in my opinion, be quite reason to be cautious, and at the same time, it's in a discount zone where I'd say that buying is a good opportunity. So it's a bit ambiguous up here. It really depends on how much risk you're willing to take. I'd say scaling slowly and then start adding on confirmation as we start claiming resistances. For now, the clean and clear resistance is the area right here. Basically, we're in this range, this little range right here right now, and once we get back above it, that's a bullish sign. And if we actually can get above here, close it on a 4-hour basis and retest it, then I think it's a pretty good sign. The other thing, and this is a bit arbitrary, there's a low here, there's a low here, and if I grab the current low, which doesn't have to be the low of the sell-off, then there's a trend line pushing us up into the resistance again. So this could be some kind of triangle, A, B, C, D, E, into a continuation pattern. So, I'm still bullish. I don't think there's reason to really think there's a lot of trouble ahead for Bitcoin. A lot of the on-chain metrics have reset. A lot of momentum metrics have reset. Surely there's been bearish divergences, but those bearish divergences have turned into hidden bullish divergences. So all in all, I don't think there's any reason to be high time frame macro bearish, and continuation is the most likely. So I kind of, yeah, I think that says it all. That's a lot of talking about Bitcoin. 15 minutes in now. Let's grab a little looky at ETH. It's let me get rid of this. ETH. I talked about it on Twitter yesterday that losing this level right there was potentially bearish. We're now retesting this high right here. So essentially what I'm looking at for ETH is a continuation into red and 0.04 above these equal highs right here. There's resting liquidity into the supply zone that caused this sell-off right here. I think this is a running flat continuation pattern, and it is going to get invalidated if we, let's grab the daily. I'd say it's going to get invalidated if we close below here, right? If that's a situation, it's probably gonna come back all the way here before it may actually curl back up. But for now, I'm gonna bet bullish on this thing. Hopefully to reach these two, and then invalidation is pretty clean. That's it's not a very macro outlook for ETH BTC, but as I said, we don't know what ETH is going to do once Bitcoin starts to rumble. I still expect Bitcoin to rumble at some point, and maybe it's going to be able to keep up. Maybe there's going to be some catalyst for that to be the case. Maybe it's just not going to be able to keep up. The Coinbase listing may attract attention to ETH in a way that we cannot foresee. There's a lot of VCs from Wall Street invested into ETH, so a lot of things can happen in the next coming weeks, and it's just going to be very interesting to see how it's going to play out. I think personally I want to be long ETH. It broke out of this high. The supply zone right here, which kind of caused this entire sell-off, is now looking to be accepted as a range. So then we're probably going to test a range high, and if that works out, we can double this range into this level that was support for a little while above these highs. So that's ETH. And then Litecoin, I mean, it feels like an eternity that I've charted this thing, so I'm probably just going to clean the chart up. This video is probably going to take a little while longer than all the other videos, but why not? This chart is lovely, by the way, with the huge wicks on Finex. I wish there was a way on TradingView where we just can, in an easy way, manipulate these kind of the data. Anyways, if there is any reason to become bullish on this asset, on Litecoin, it's probably going to be around the level where it's been right now. The final bearish candle before the run up in 17 has been tested right there. All right, so I probably want to be interested in LTC around these areas. I'm not really sure if it's going to get any lower than this, but something has been going on here for a long time. Like, it feels like everyone has been speculating on Litecoin for it to run, and the opportunity cost has been too much. Price has been suppressed, so basically everyone is just ditching their bags to buy something else. Everything else has been running, and what it probably is going to do, it's going to create a situation where most of the Litecoins are in very strong hands, and eventually see some kind of rally like this. Probably not as big, not as high, but most definitely probably eventually runs into the 0.008, 0.007 region, perhaps all the way to 0.010. And I just get confused when I look at this chart, whether this is just going to continue this behavior for a while until kind of, Bitcoin turns into a blow off top and then Litecoin starts to run, or that it's going to run with Bitcoin, assuming Bitcoin is going to run. And that makes me just so confused on this asset, right? There's no reason to long it right here, right now, as it's at resistance. So if you didn't get long here, it's probably not, the cleanest idea to get long. But what we can do is pretty much say, okay, this was the support for quite some time. This is a weekly chart. So essentially, this acted as a demand zone for 100 days, more or less, even more probably. If this is kind of the capitulation move, and there's not a lot of volume here, so people kind of lost interest here, not a lot of volume here, yada yada yada. If we manage to get above it on the weekly, there's still going to be a lot of resistance here, but then I'll probably want to start longing the local structure, which is here, right? So a close above here, which it kind of seems to be, getting close towards, makes me want to long it as it comes back down here and then just hold it and hope, and if it's going to be sideways ranging in this range versus Bitcoin and Bitcoin is going to rally, that's fine with me. That's I'll just put it on spot, and from there on out, it's likely to do as well as Bitcoin, or maybe do a little bit better than Bitcoin. And if for some reason somehow this finally starts happening, something like this or something like that or something like that, that's where the big bingo is going to be, because this is a coin where you can probably get a lot of size in as liquidity ramps up if a lot of people start trading it. So that's kind of the plan on Litecoin, and I think that's 22 minutes, a lot longer than usual. I hope that made sense. I hope we can get some action in the weeks ahead, and I'll catch you on Sunday. Cheers.